Hi everyone, welcome back to Riley's Garden, and in this week's video we're going to be transplanting our cherry tomatoes into the garden. And this is a Sakura from Johnny's Seeds, transplanted into this container on February 18th, so about 2.5 weeks ago, and it's looking absolutely just beautiful. This is a Sun Gold. This is also from Johnny's Seeds. Seeds purchased about 5 years ago, still totally viable. They came up with probably a 90% germination rate, and this one is also going to be planted out today. I'm going to be putting 2 cherry tomato plants in this bed. I've already got 4 determinate in the bed behind me. I've got 8 granderos on the patio beds. I've got another 2 big beef and a bed over there. We're going to have tomatoes galore this year, but today the focus is when to transplant your tomato plants into the garden, how to transplant them into the garden for optimum growth. So today we're going to prepare this garden bed the way that I prepare all my beds every year. I'm going to plant out this tomato, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do this step by step. But to take on the number one question first, when to transplant your tomato seedlings into their final home in the garden? And the answer to that is anytime after your last predicted frost date. Once that date has passed and there's no chance of frost, you're not going to kill your plants off. So whether it's 2 inches tall or 12 inches tall, that transplant can be safely put into the garden. My process for transplanting tomato plants into my garden, and really any plants into my garden, starts with feeding my soil. So I've got some nice organic compost from my compost bin. That's going to go on the top of the soil. I've got my soaker hose that I can hook up and ensure watering. I've got a few other tips and tricks I want to show you how we're going to transplant these out. Stick around. I'm going to take you through this step by step. Step number 1 is to smooth all this out, level it out before I put my compost in. You could actually take the loose stuff off the top of your garden bed and add it into your compost bin as a brown if you wanted to. I sometimes do that, but this year I'm just going to be filling in over all of this organic material. Cover this up. That looks great. All right, time to dump the compost. That's all I do. I put 1 inch to 2 inches of my compost on my beds. This will feed these beds all season. I do this once a year. Next step is to dig my hole, and let's plant some tomato plants. Before I dig my hole for the tomato plant, a quick word on plant spacing. There used to be a time when I would plant my tomato plants very densely, 4 in this 4-foot bed spaced out every foot. I don't do that anymore. After years of gardening, I found less is more with gardening. So I've cut that back by about 50%. I'll actually put only 2 plants in this bed. And these plants spaced out 24 to 36 inches apart. And then that gives me room to prune them or not prune them as I see fit. These are indeterminate plants, and they will fill up this entire trellis. So what I'm just going to do here is I'm going to figure I'll put one here, put another one right there, and I'm just going to dig my hole. Tomatoes are one of those plants where you can plant them, you can and should plant them fairly deep. They will grow roots out of any part of their stem. So I'm just going to trim this off here, here, here. Take those cotyledons off. And let's see how far that would go down to about, that looks perfect to me. Now, before I put that plant in the hole, I will water this hole in. And today for watering the hole in, I am using aerated compost tea. Not strictly necessary, but I have found this to be a great addition to my garden. I've already done a video on how to make this tea, and I'll leave a link to that video in the video description below if you're interested in that. Otherwise, just put a little bit of water in the bottom of the hole, dampen the hole up, and get it ready to receive the roots of this tomato transplant. Now to transplant my tomato plant, look at that. That is looking just beautiful, but you can see this is just the right time to be transplanting this plant because this is starting to get a little bit root bound. So I'm just going to drop that plant into this hole. I'm going to backfill my soil. A little bit of it there. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of water on top just to soak everything in. Perfect. I'm going to finish planting out the other plant, and then we're going to get to the next step, which I find is even more critical than putting that plant where it is right now. Second to last step in my bed preparation process is putting in my soaker hose. If you're growing a garden and you've never had soaker hoses, drip irrigation, anything like that in your garden, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and make the small investment. This was $19 and install it. This combined with an inexpensive $20 timer is such a great piece of insurance for you and your garden. Just for tomatoes alone and the risk of blossom end rot, where the bottom of these fruits rot out, and the cause of that is a lack of calcium, but it's a lack of calcium caused by uneven watering or infrequent watering. Soaker hoses and a timer take that problem completely away. It doesn't exist anymore. You set your timer on a schedule, how many days a week that you want to be watering your plants, for how long. You set it and you forget it. It's one last thing you have to worry about, and you can always ensure that your plants are getting the right amount of water. You're not going to come out and find the bottom of your tomatoes rotted away because you've been watering them unevenly or not at the right frequencies and not keeping that soil moist. I cannot suggest it enough. It's such a great addition to my garden. I've already done a video on this, and I'm going to leave that video down in the video description. And meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and get the soaker hose in this bed. The soaker hose is in and took less than 5 minutes. They go in very quickly every single year. One important thing I wanted to show you though, do you see how these leaves are hanging down and touching the dirt a little bit? This is what you do not want, because this is a good way for your plant to get diseases. Now, the final step in our process is to put mulch on top of this, which we are going to do in just a minute. But even with the mulch on, I can see that these lower leaves are going to be touching that mulch, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and clip these off right now. And I'll do the same on the other side, and then we're going to put our mulch on. And mulch is critical. 2 reasons. One, it keeps the moisture in the bed. It covers up the soaker hose, keeps the moisture in the bed, keeps all of your weeds down. It's like climate control for your garden bed. So super important. The other thing it helps is it helps with disease, because even if your plants do get a little bit overgrown, they're going to be hanging over into that mulch and not into that soil directly. Although if you do see that, you do want to clip those plants back. I use some hardwood mulch here in South Texas that is available annually every year or seasonally every year at my local Lowe's. It's inexpensive and it works just so well in my garden, both in my garden beds and after the season. And I clean up my beds, I can add it to my compost bins as a brown material to compost down with my green wastes. It has been really fantastic for me. It may not be available in your area, but you could use tons of different materials from mulch, whatever is available in your area. Leaves, straw, grass clippings, they'll all work to keep that moisture in the bed and not evaporate away. Another garden job completed. I'm excited. I've only got a few more beds left to complete this year. To sum up today, of all the things that I've talked about, and I'm going to put a video link right here, putting in a soaker hose system has been the biggest time saver for me of all the things that I've done in my garden. If you have the means, you should consider it. it is going to save you a ton of heartache and a ton of time.